So all 7 Ojibwe tribes in Minnesota and all 4 Dakota communities are all federally recognized. There are differences with Red Lake, and one of the differences is that they never had a policy of allotment at Red Lake. So no individuals own land in the reservation proper. All of the land is held in trust for the benefit of all tribal members. So for the people who live there, among other things, you cannot put a mortgage on your property to build a house because you don't own that land. Yeah, you could mortgage anything you build or put on there if you can convince a bank, you know, who would have to come with a truck, you know, if they needed to repossess, right? So that has sometimes made it harder for them at Red Lake. But it has been a great blessing and benefit in many other ways. 87 miles of lakeshore around Red Lake, Upper and Lower Red Lake, undeveloped. Cleanest aquifer in the state of Minnesota. If you go to Leech Lake, natives own 4% of their own reservation. It's all white resorts and everything else lining every pretty lake up there. So Red Lake's been able to keep their land base intact. That's one of the big differences. One of the other big differences, there was a piece of federal legislation called Public Law 280, which would impose state criminal jurisdiction over tribes, and only in certain states, including Minnesota, but Red Lake was exempted from that. So as a result, they handle their own criminal code, except for things covered in the Major Crimes Act. So you'll get an FBI investigation for murder, rape, and then all the major property crimes, arson, larceny, and so forth. Everything else is just covered by tribal statute. If you went to Leech Lake, it would all be state law enforcement agencies because they're under Public Law 280. 2 reservations in the same state. Bois Fort did also get exempted from Public Law 280 in 1975, so they're the only 2 that have no state jurisdiction on the tribes. Yeah, it's like the lawyers don't even understand this stuff that well, but it is significant when you're trying to like engineer justice and look out for people. Yeah, so like most crime in America is white on white, black on black, and so forth, but crimes of sexual violence perpetrated on Native women are predominantly perpetrated by white males. Sexual assault rates in America are 25%, it's 50% for the Native community. Tribes, like at a place like Red Lake or Bois Fort, they don't have jurisdiction over non-tribal members. So a white man who commits a sexual crime on a Native woman on those 2 reservations has impunity. So they passed legislation called the Violence Against Women Act, which was designed to address this jurisdictional loophole. And for many years, it was legislation that had to be re-upped by Congress. And then there were certain politicians who did not want to re-up it because they didn't want to strengthen tribal sovereignty, because pipelines or whatever. And so they're fighting against this thing, which is to protect women. Recently, we had a no sunset clause put on some of the VAWA legislation, but it needs to be strengthened and improved so that we can protect everybody. So if you take a drive up at Red Lake, you know you're in a Native space. Not just because it's only brown people, you know, but yeah, like we had some dude, like a white trucker guy cruising across the reservation, hit somebody in a hit and run, just kept cruising, and did it twice, you know. So the tribes caught him and impounded his vehicle, and they gave me a call, and we wrote up the court order in Ojibwe and said, if you want your property, hire a translator. You're on a Native nation, you know. And so they can do things like that at Red Lake. I don't think you'll see stuff like that in most of the other communities as much. So there is sovereignty, which all the tribes have in a legal sense, but you'll see it manifested in some different ways. Yeah. But all of them are trying to grow and strengthen that.